I am going to introduce you to our guest, our friend and brother. Bear with me here while I just make a quick correction here. And it is Joel Richards. And again, we're so grateful that you are with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Who's the Sigma?
Say again?
Who's the Sigma?
Sigma?
I saw a car outside with a Sigma license plate.
Good question. I have no idea.
Okay.
Yes, you are. Are you a Sigma?
Yes. I am. Morehouse. I went to Morehouse Pledge Chi Chapter.
Interesting.
Yes.
That may be Barry Lawton's. I don't know because I didn't see the vehicle that he drove in. I've been here since about 7 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
And so unfortunately I did not. But so Sigma, that's the Q's.
No, Phi Beta Sigma. Phi Beta Sigma. Yes. Blue and white. Yes.
All right. Well, again, welcome, Brother Joel Richards. Thank you for being with us. We've had several conversations. I've seen you in the community.
Yes.
And we again are excited that, in fact, you were the first candidate, I believe, who threw your hat in the ring.
Yes.
And I believe you may have done that even before Frank Baker announced that he was not going to run for re-election. Is that the case?
Yeah, I started in December. So this is coming on month 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started, it was never about who I was running against, it's about what I was running for. Mm-hmm. My name is Joel Richards. I'm a teacher, pastor, and most importantly, a dad. Everything I'm running for right now is personal. Mm-hmm. So I just never thought about like the field or anything like that. I thought about what my daily life is like in Boston. Mm-hmm. So when I send my kids to school, my oldest goes to the Russell, and they've overtaken the auditorium for classroom space. So he doesn't have PE every day. My youngest goes to the Henderson on Dot Ave, lower school. And he has to layer up for the winter because it's just too cold in the school. It's just an old building. Mm-hmm. Both my sons love their school, love their teachers, have great friends from the school and great community. Some of our best friends are parents in these schools. Okay. But we haven't had a new school built on this side of town, a public school, since 1971, 1972. I actually had to go to the Dorchester Historical Society to find that out, And so these are not political issues to me. These are personal, real issues. When we talk about traffic in this area, that's what you say. Yeah, you're about to say. Traffic is a deep issue in this area, right? Being between Morrissey Boulevard, 93, and Dot Ave. Mm-hmm. I mean, you literally avoid Dot Ave at all cost. And all of our streets have turned into cut-throughs. Right, where people are speeding through just to get around the traffic. Yep. And if we don't solve the traffic issue in this city, it's going to affect not only just our lifestyle, but my kids get what's called a croup cough when they get sick. And this cough, it just exacerbates when they're already sick. And it blocks their airways. And sometimes I end up at Children's Hospital all night trying to open it back up, giving them Albuterol. Mm-hmm. So these are serious, real issues to me. When I talk about not just even traffic, but the housing issues here, right? These are real issues to me because I'm having a third kid in about 4 weeks. August 16th, another boy. Thank you. Baby Yago Benjamin is coming. But we still live in a 2-bedroom. Mm-hmm. I own the whole building. Mm-hmm. My wife and I own a triple-decker in Dorchester, and we cannot afford to move on to that forever home. Right, we've dipped into retirement to pay for heaters and to fix roofs. We've been minus 400 on the budget. They don't get your car for every 60 days, so you got 30 days to you be 30 days behind, and we've done all of that, right, just to make it through. And we've come out on the other side, and we are not able to buy that forever home that you would think you'd be able to buy now. Because of the housing prices, right? Sure. I don't know about you, but I lose a friend once a month to Western Mass, Texas, Florida, Georgia. People are leaving not just the city, but even the state sometimes just because it's so expensive to live here, or the schools and the conditions there are. So, these are personal, real issues to me, not political. These are things that affect my daily life every day.
And I appreciate that. With that said, obviously, with the issues being personal and that they affect our lives, we understand politics is something that we need. First of all, people who we're going to elect, who are going to understand how to navigate the political landscape to be able to advocate for the issues that are relevant to us. Now, many times candidates are very altruistic. and that they're passionate about particular issues, and that's great and that's good. With that said, there is a craft, if you will, to be able to negotiate, because you can't do anything simply as a single lone ranger by yourself. So the notion of democracy, right, and working with community, but also to pass stuff with legislators, right? So there's a piece of the politics that comes from people's passion, that ultimately learning how to navigate politics. Many people think politics, again, even though like the word, people call them politricians, right? Don't like politicians because they make promises, and many times make promises out of maybe, again, an altruistic mind, but not really understanding practically how you navigate that landscape and pass legislation.
So I will say my motivations aren't political. They're people-based and personal.
And I appreciate
but
that.
the mechanism that you talk about is true. It is political. What the Bible say, be crafty as a serpent and harmless as a dove, or to understand this world as well as you understand, or understand the next world as well as you understand this one. So understanding in this, I also have a degree in political science from Morehouse College.
Excellent.
So I understand what policy is.
Great.
I have a deep understanding of what it takes to, have those conversations or discussions on a deep philosophical liberal arts level, but also, being a community, organizer and union activist. I also understand that there are a lot of policy people out there that I'm friends with, that I have partnerships with, that once I get in and get elected, I would just bring them in and we would sit down and write that policy together, and then do what you said, get the people behind us, make the phone calls, get the unions and get the community organizations that are doing this work already to start calling on behalf of people and getting these legislations passed or policy passed. These are things that I'm very comfortable doing.
And I appreciate, when you say getting people behind you, I hope that it's also getting behind people, because there may be insight and perspectives and innovation that have not been heard, right, that need to be brought to those relationships that you already have, that could easily coalesce to be able to create the policy and maybe have some ideas or some things that may need to be done, but that it's also open and inclusive of some maybe ideas or people that maybe you've not had the opportunity to be able to engage.
100%. I don't have all the answers. I believe that for 100%, but I have all the passion because these are personal issues for me.
Amen.
Right? So I'm here to work, right? My whole big thing is work to solve, right? Not to fight, not to go in there and argue. There's enough of that in this world. Absolutely. Right? And so actually I was just talking to that with my campaign manager, that like, I feel like God has matured me where I'm not fighting or arguing all the time, where like what he did with Peter, similarly, right? To take those passions and put them in a place where he can actually use them and utilize them, and you can bring people together. And that's my goal for this seat. That's my goal to go into the future. Yeah.
So let me go back here for a moment. So I want to go to as you said, a father. You talked about some of your challenges that are personal relative to what your children are experiencing in the public school system right here in the city of Boston. So I want to go there just for a moment, because that's a big issue in terms of education, and particularly in this climate with we have a mayor that has been consistent during her campaign and quite candidly post her election, despite the fact that the people have clearly spoken of Boston and said they want a fully elected school committee, as every other city in this Commonwealth has. We're the only city that doesn't have a fully elected school committee. So I'm curious to hear your perspective with regard to elected school committee vice a hybrid, which is what the mayor has really been really consistent in saying that she's going to do. And I feel, to your point about hearing from the people, and we elect you to be able to ultimately represent what we want. And when people unanimously have said, we want a fully elected school committee, and you're saying, but I'm not going to do that because this is what I think is better, that's challenging for the people, feeling like you're not hearing what we elected you to do. And there may be consequences for that. So I'm just curious, as, again, a person who's running for District 3 City Council on the Boston City Council, and this is being an issue that education is so important, and the power of Barry Lawton was just on here and he talked about, the various superintendents that we've gone through, through those various administrations, right? And some of the challenges that we're having. And so he's made it real clear that his position is to support a fully elected school committee. And I'm curious to hear, for the record, what is your stance with regard to the elected school committee here in the city of Boston?
Yeah, I voted yes for a fully elected school board committee, and that's what I want to see also. Excellent. I'd just like to see it by districts, not it just being open, but like similar to the city council, where they split it up every district or city or town, however they want to split it up, or however we can agree to it and work towards that policy, that people run for it in certain areas, so that you're advocating for a specific people group or a specific area, not just, one group could get elected and hold a lot of power for one side of town. So I would like just some equity in that.
Yeah.
I don't feel, that's all I would say to that. But I 100% want to see an elected school board. Yes.
Okay. I appreciate that. With that said, there's been a lot of challenge with regard to, or controversy with regard to the John D. O'Brien connected to Madison Park, moving this gym that we have that's not fully even maximized serving the community where it was advocated for it to be. And now there was a press conference by Mayor Wu to remove that and move it to another area. And there's been a lot of people who are graduates from John D. O'Brien who have protested. There's been activists and organizers who protested this. So curious to hear your perspective with regard to this specific, because we talk about public school, and this is a trade school, right? So we're talking about people being able to learn trades and arts and things that everybody's not going to go to college, right? Some people are interested in and need to learn. I went to a trade school and I loved it and loved that option as that was something.
What trade did you learn?
I was actually a culinary arts major.
Really?
Yes, I was.
Oh, nice.
I went to Ridley Regional Vocational Technical High School, and I did several trades in the first year to discover which one I wanted to do. Did culinary arts, and then actually did distributed education, and I loved both, and the things that helped me to really be able to get jobs, to be able to learn work ethic, and ultimately have vision for serving and creating those same kind of opportunities for people to be able to be in community that can be able to use, learn a skill that they can do with their hands, and that will make a living wage. And it's about teamwork and so forth, and offers a resource to the community that people can come to the community and have ambiance and excellence and being served by us, as opposed to going to downtown, the Four Seasons, or a place that's going to gouge you, and you're not even training other folks who can be able to learn this skill set of excellence, of how do you serve in excellence. So that's something that I'd like to see more of here in the city of Boston, opportunities for the trades, not just for young folks, but also for returning citizens, people who are incarcerated, who are coming out of incarceration, who need to be in community, right? Who need to learn a marketable skill set to make a living wage and to be able to then build something. Talk about restorative justice. How about building a 4 or 5-star hotel that you built as you've taken from the community? Now collectively you're building an institution for the community that is you got a block of rooms on there that actually some people live. So there's ownership, and you are being trained under seasoned veterans how to ultimately become homeowners, how to become entrepreneurs, how to do stuff in excellence. And as you as a believer, and I am, to do stuff that represents the kingdom of God, that crosses culture, but has a consistent quality of excellence that should be about how we serve as unto God, as not as unto people, that we're respecters of people.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm a big believer in you have to, first of all, you have to communicate with the school community before you should ask them what they want before you give them anything. And then also, I'm a big believer that you should build the school first before you decide to move them or close it down or do any merging like that. Show us the goal, break the ground, start building it. Those are the things that I would like to see. Anytime you talk about a school closure or a merger, I don't believe it unless the place that they're supposed to go is being started. Not in your mind, not 5 years down the road, but like, okay, this is the year we're starting it, ground is being broken, and you will end up here in this new school. And also, if the people of the O'Brien have spoken loudly that they do not want it to move, I don't see where that breaking apart that community would help at all. And I do feel like and also there's two schools there. There's the Madison, which is the trade school that you're talking about, and the John D. O'Brien, which is like a different school in itself, where it has arts.
Okay.
It also has technical skills where like you can so there are literally you can get a computer science education there in high school. That's huge. That's huge, because then like if you have the right portfolio and you have, like you were speaking about, if you have the right portfolio and you have the right experience and you even do some internships, you don't have to go to college. You can go straight into the work field and become an IT professional, get into business analytics, be a programmer, and do these things. So you can have the certificates and work your way into a job right away. So that's why people are so protective over that school. I actually want my oldest to go there because he loves to draw, he loves music, and he's very good at math. So I feel like that's an environment that he would excel in. My middle child, because I have another child on the way, so he's not my youngest anymore. So I have to change that language. But my middle child, I'm excited to see where he gravitates to. So what school we want him to go into, but I do want schools on this side of town, right? More schools. We should be building more high schools on this side of town, more modern schools that are safe and modern and have resources where students can do the things you talked about, learn a trade, right? Go into the IT field, learn how to play an instrument, right? Learn how to cook and manage a business and do marketing, right? If you go to the suburbs, there are high schoolers taking marketing classes already, right? What does that mean for their mindset for the future and where they could go, right? Yes. The possibilities are endless. So that's the kind of things I want to see, and I want to see more of it here. I don't want anything to leave our neighborhoods anymore. A lot is left, like you said. A lot is left.
So in that same vein, so with regard to the higher institutions of learning here, right? This is the educational mecca of the world. Literally, people come from all over the world to come to institutions of higher learning here in Boston and in Massachusetts, Harvard's, MIT, right? It goes on and on and on. Northeastern, these schools that don't pay taxes, they are supposed to be paying payment pilot in lieu of taxes, but they're not. They're just not paying. They're not giving their fair share. They're buying up every patch of land that we see, right? Some of the schools, Northeastern and so on, are sprawling throughout the city. And people are literally, as I said, come from all over the world to come here to get these education, these this education that's world-class education. In many instances may leave, right? And these institutions are making a lot of money and living here, and not people who live here, who go to Boston Public School, may not be able to go to some of these same institutions of higher learning that people live here. That's a problem. So, holding accountable these institutions to do more, to mentor, to offer scholarships, to have partnerships with places like you talk about, the Madison, right? So can you imagine that being in collaboration and being partnership, or having these relationships that from that you automatically are able to get jobs, or to be able to, just to partner with these institutions. And it should be that if you're not fortunate enough to be able to get us to go to a charter school, right? And you have to go to Boston Public School, or you are fortunate enough to go to a charter school and you don't do well there for whatever reason, and now they are pushing you back to the public school system, and the resources that were allocated to go with you stay at the private school, though you go back to the public school. So again, this is the way that it's set up right now. And again, as a teacher and as a father and as a potential city councilor, would these be things that you would address, or what are some of your vision in terms of holding accountable these institutions to do more? As you just talked about METCO and some of those other programs that we've lost. We've got this gym here, they're talking about taking more, and we don't even, as it already stands, there's a disparity with folks who live in Boston who are not afforded a quality education and the opportunity even to participate in these higher institutions of learning here in the state of Massachusetts.
So I'm gonna take, that was a big,
there's a lot.
So I'm gonna take it piece by piece.
Please.
I think when you talk about the pilot program, pay in lieu of taxes, obviously there's loophole issues, but this is where you talked about policy earlier. So I don't think I have to reinvent the wheel. I guarantee if we looked for it, there are policy experts out there that have already addressed this issue for cities.
Okay.
And I have done studies and peer-reviewed articles. So we're in Boston, like you said. They're probably here at Harvard. They're probably at the same institutions you named. So let's invite them in and help me and other city councilors write the comprehensive policy to make sure they're not taking housing from that is desperately needed here in Boston. And they're also paying their fair share. What kind of policies need to be enacted to make sure this happens? I think that's not easy, but I think that's equitable. I think that's just. And I think that's the right thing to do. And that'd be something I would love to work on, right? Because that's money that should be going to our public schools. That's money that should be going to our infrastructure. That's money that should be going to our public works, so we have better parks and better facilities for our kids to use, and more green space and more trees. So that's where those tax dollars would go. So I would gladly spend the time to work on that. And then like partnering with the colleges, I would love to see more Boston Public School high schoolers taking college courses before they leave high school. We know that AP courses can be elitist in classes because you have to be able to afford them. And not everyone can afford them. But we have state institutions that are publicly funded that should be able to, take our students that are receiving public funding and having them take college courses that could help them be in college shorter, assume less debt, and then come back and actually help our communities and be there and enter the workforce faster. So I think these are the kind of programs that we should be implementing. More, IB programs, international baccalaureate programs for our high school students, so that they could come out with almost a year to 2 years worth of college credits, right? They can get multiple degrees when they're in school, make themselves more competitive for the job market. So I feel like, these are things I would love to explore. These are things I think about because not only, like you said, I'm a teacher and also, like I'm a father. So these are the things I want for my own students and for my own children, and for my friends' children and for everyone's children. So, I also think these are things that make our society and our city better, right? The more educational opportunities given, the better our city is going to be, and the more attractive it is.
Absolutely.
Right, and bring more people in.
Absolutely.
So these are things that are better for economically. So like when you want to start your 4-star, I apologize, but your 5-star restaurant here in Dorchester, right? Hotel. Sorry,
Okay.
Your hotel. I know you're gonna have a restaurant on there. So okay. All right, right. Yeah. They can come. There's enough economics here. There's people that are like, oh yeah, I've taken my courses, I got my degree, and I'm coming back to my neighborhood to live here, work here, and do those kind of things, and stay at your hotel and eat at your restaurants, and my family, when they come to visit for the family reunions, they're there, and you got the catering, and that's where I got married, at my brother's restaurant. So these are the things that we need to see in our own community. So I think these are things that can happen.
Absolutely.
But that starts with what I mentioned before: new schools here.
New school. It's interesting. Charles Yancey, city councilor, was an outstanding city councilor. Wasn't even my district city councilor, but advocated for me for issues in many instances better than my own district city councilor did. So I have to give him that respect. With that said, he has been fighting while he was in office forever to get a high school built here in the city of Boston. Like you said, it's absurd to think that with all these resources that we have, that has not the dilapidated structures and the things that your children are experiencing, and that's just the decrepit conditions of the building that are not even healthy, being compounded with public safety. Right? I mean, and so I'd love to hear your perspective about public safety in the context of school. There's a shift with, we have a broadcaster named Leo Detective Ellison that does a broadcast every Saturday from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And he is a school police officer and talks candidly about this challenge that they're experiencing. And now there's a mindset to don't have them in the school, but then they want to call them when there's a problem in the school. And so what is your perspective with regard to safety and some of your policies or some of your ideology? Because there's people who feel like having metal detectors and having school police officers is all traumatizing to the children. Though you go to Disneyland, though you go to City Hall, though you go to a state building, though any place that you go, you're subjected to go through a metal detector. And we do that because we want to be safe. And so there's some city councils who have said unequivocally, and it's not about race, it's about safety. And they happen to be disproportionately the white councilors who are saying that they want metal detectors in the schools. They want the schools, you got to be safe before you can even talk about being able to get educated. Many people I talk to, young kids who feel that they have to carry weapons to protect themselves. So I'd be curious to hear your stance or position or vision relative to how do we address public safety in this climate that is kind of like defund the police, more social workers, more case managers, mental health workers, and not metal detectors, and also police officers who are inside school who have relationship with the students.
So we have to talk about there's perceived violence and actual violence, right? And so if you perceive that you're going to be violent, then you feel like you're on edge, okay, or you need to carry a gun, like you said, or a weapon or a knife or something, yep, to protect yourself because you perceive that you're going to be hurt. So you have to first go to the root of that. Why is there violence there? Why do you perceive? Have we done conflict resolution first? Have we looked into the fact of like, what is the real issue, the root issue? To just put a security officer or a police officer in a school without mental health professionals or without social workers or without conflict resolution counselors, sure, is handicapping that police officer. Sure. You're setting him up for failure because he's only reactive.
That's right.
Right? Like I say this about mass and cast, or I'll say this about violence, or I'll say this about like anything to this end. It doesn't happen overnight. That's right. This is a long process that has led there. So where was the intervention before the security officer got called? Where was the intervention when the first thing was said or the first incident happened, right? And that's usually because there was an absence of social workers or an absence of mental health care professionals that were there, or conflict resolution counselors that were there to help, right? Like if two students are arguing, who do they go and see? Right? Who trained them how to deal with these arguments? Who helped them through it? Right? Who helped them recover and reconcile through the process? Mm-hmm. Right? Or do you just, when they start to fight, or you just call the officer and he jumps on them? Right? And yes, he's trying to develop relationships, but he's doing two things at once. He's trying to develop relationships to prevent something, but he's also the person that stops everything too. Right? He can't do both. You can't ask him to do both. Okay. Right? And so like if he wants to develop those relationships and be there for that, then he should be, but it has to be an environment where he can do that. Mm-hmm. And right now we don't have those kind of environments, right? Like we do need more social workers in the school. We do need more social workers for the city in general. Sure. Right? Like, and so, yeah.
But let me be clear that I hear your answer, because I agree with what you're saying about, yes, we need social workers. One of our pastor's wife is a clinical social worker, licensed clinical social worker. They worked at the Trotter School, one of the few schools that actually even had mental health counselors inside the school system. So the structure has to be and have the budget and all of that to be able to do that. So yes, that's a piece, and I think we all agree with that. But is it, as you said? What will be? Do you think that metal detectors and school resource officers in conjunction with social workers, with mental health counselors, or are you saying just one or the other?
I'm saying you can't have one without the other.
Okay, so you can't.
Like you can't. Like if you want, I'm not saying, I don't know about metal detectors. I feel like if you're there, then how did you get there? Right? Like what happened where you got to a point where you need metal detectors in a school? Like,
the fact that we know that people are, they're students who are bringing guns to school, right?
Well, that's because they feel they're not safe. They don't feel safe.
Okay.
Right? And we can identify who they are. Mm-hmm. They're not hard. Mm-hmm. Right? Like we got to go to them and figure out, why don't you feel safe? And then walk through that process of actually stopping violence, of actually helping this person not be violent or scared anymore. Mm-hmm. Right? If we don't have that mechanism, the metal detector is only safe for the kids in school. What happens when they leave?
Correct.
No. Or what happens when they walk outside? And then, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like that. And that is, and we've seen, you can go down a lot of roads, but if we don't have a preventative outcome-based method or thought process, right, then metal detectors do nothing, right? There's no, unless the metal detector follows you everywhere you go, right? Like we need to stop violence at its root. So that's my big thing. And like we like, that's an issue that tries to divide us instead of coming together on it and saying like,
I'm not trying to,
I'm not saying you, I'm saying the issue itself, right? If you don't want metal detectors, then you don't want this, or you want social workers and you don't want this. No, we want safety. And what does that look like? right? Let's talk about what's the outcome and how does that look. Okay. Our goal should be that we don't need metal detectors.
And that is, I would think that would be everybody's goal. But as you said, things are a process, right? And so we got to start with where we are, right? And so we get to the process, right? Yes, that's great that, we want to get to a place that people don't, and we address these things. And I'm in total agreement with you. With that said, as it stands right now, we are experiencing violence within the schools, and people are bringing guns. Our people are, and so there's a question with how people not wanting to come to school because they don't feel safe. For people who do feel like, okay, if they need to come, and this is what they need to be able to do. So again, just being clear in terms of, as people are running for this specific district seat and have visions and perspectives and so forth, so that we all can just make an informed decision. And so, there are some folks who personally, I don't have children in the school system that are biological. I have, people who I mentor and that kind of stuff, and people who we care about. And as a pastor, with that said, I personally think that, again, I don't think it's traumatizing to have a metal detector in a school. Personally, I just don't. And I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but for that time and place that you have students in school, to know that, you've got every mechanism in place to be able to create safety while we work on addressing those kinds of issues that we know are, to help people not to conflict resolution, and, not to feel like you have to come to school. Like, let's do all of that too. But, right, let's start with having a safe environment that people feel like they can be safe while they're in school, both the teachers as well as the students. So it's just my perspective, and so just curious to hear clearly your perspective. And let me see, we got some questions here. It says, with the struggles you just mentioned, having why chose to get into politics where the pay is, quote, not, unquote, or doesn't equal that of the private sector. He asked, what do you currently do for a living?
I'm a teacher.
Okay. He said, what would your strategy to entice more people of color to come to Boston to teach? That was just a question. What would you a strategy to entice more people of color, as you said you graduated from
Morehouse College.
Morehouse. And so do you have any kind of a strategy that you could think of, I guess, to entice more people of color from other places that have that kind of understanding of, importance of black teachers here in the city of Boston to come and teach?
I mean, recruiting from the education, like the majors, go into those schools. I've had friends who majored in education. You send a human resource officer there and they'll come, offering a city that's affordable also. I think that's why housing is a big issue that we need to conquer. And so if you make a city where people can come and afford to actually rent and live, and like you said, has like nice restaurants and in the neighborhoods, and it's an attractive city for that, then they'll definitely come. I don't think it's hard. It's just about effort. I don't think when it comes to black teachers there. My motivation to get in to this political work is everything I mentioned in the beginning. This is work that needs to be done. Right. And I saw, and this is an opportunity for me to get in there and to work and to do the work, to work on housing, to bring the policy people there, and let's write the appropriate policy and really move forward with that. So, yes.
So I love the fact that, that that you're a pastor, that you're a father, that you are a husband, and a teacher, right? And many of those things. And as a black man, I appreciate that all of those facets of who you are. With that said, I'm curious a little bit more about your story. And I've seen you on the campaign trail. I've seen your sign right in front of where I live. And I see that, or someplace I saw that, maybe it was even on your website, that you are Jamaican. So talk about the whole some of just who you are and some of your journey. You're Jamaican. Were you born there or were you born here?
No, I'm a first generation Jamaican American. Okay. Both my mother's from Linstead, my father's from Kingston. Okay. So yes, no, grew up in a very Caribbean household. Mm-hmm. Went to Morehouse College, got my master's degree, and then came to Boston. Met my I'm a late convert since we're on. I got saved around 27 in grad school. I don't think the person even knew. He just gave a gospel presentation in the room. I don't know if I ever even told him, but then the Holy Spirit just took over me in that moment. Wow. I was a very different person. It was funny. It was actually, I can be honest with y'all. Yeah. But it was a Christian master's program and it was free. I was pretending to be a Christian. And then the person there gave the gospel presentation and I became one. So yeah, literally, I started reading my Bible. I started going to church. I started joining Bible study groups. And from that, I always wondered if the person even, I never told them. So there's no way they knew. And, with the Holy Spirit and God had a plan, and then coming here, joining a church, and just really being discipled. Jewel Robinson, Heart Change, they really just poured their lives into me and really helped me.
Say that again. But Jewel Robinson?
Yes,
that's your pastor.
Yes, okay. And mentor, brother, one of my best friends in the world. My kids call him Uncle Jewel. Their kids and my kids know no difference between the relationship they have like brother to sister. And
what's the name of the church?
Well, now the church I go to is Charles River Church. Our church started getting smaller, and then so we merged with another church. Mm-hmm. And it's been good. It's been a good process of merging and just bringing a different culture to a church. But the whole process of just my faith journey has just been a lot. My mother always prayed that I'd become a Christian. I thought she was, I was like, those are wasted prayers. But little did I know, her and my father never gave up. They, fasted and prayed probably once a week, trying to get me. And prayer works. Amen. I would say if I leave you with nothing else, make sure you are praying for your children every day, no matter how far. Because I was very far, very mentally, very far from that. And but the Holy Spirit and God, no one can see the Father unless He wills it, and He willed it in that day when I can remember today. He was like, "You deserve death." Jesus stepped in and took that punishment for you, right? And so that you could live a life where He's on the throne of it. And it broke me to the core. I never even, I don't know. I've heard things like you've heard it before, just you weren't ready to receive it. You can't hear it till God's ready. Mm-hmm. So if that's, in my mind, it's the first time I ever heard a gospel presentation, and from then on, my whole life has been totally different. The marriage I have, the relationship with my children I have, relationship with my wife that I have, or with anyone around me is based on that moment when the Holy Spirit came and called me to live a life totally different, where I'm no longer on the throne, where I'm no longer in control, and He's 100% in control. Amen. And so now I'm here in Boston. I've been here, teaching, moving to pastorship. My main ministry is that I give pastors rest. So even on Sunday, this coming Sunday, I'll be at Mount Moriah Church in Brockton, church out there. The pastor there, Cedric Rucker, yes. He's taking a little time, have some people in town, and he asked me to step in for him, and I gladly said yes. And I'll be preparing for that all this week, and I'll be there Sunday preparing and bringing the word there. So because it's born out of, when you're a part of a small church, you end up doing everything. Like I can run audio, I can run the screen projector, I can teach a children's class, and then after a while, Jua, discipled me to be able to preach. And so I've learned and I've read and I've studied. I listen to podcasts about preaching. I read books about preaching. It's become a ministry of mine where I've developed a style and techniques and everything. And so, and an understanding and and through the Holy Spirit, a deep understanding of the word, and most people, I have a very unique relationship with God. Like God puts me through all types of, one day I'll come back and tell you all about that, but puts me in all types of positions and ways to really see Him and understand Him. And if you're around me for too long, all I say all day is God is good, because He just proves it to me time and time and time again. And so I feel like that's the biggest journey I can tell you about, is that faith walk, that faith journey, that transformation. I will say this, before I was saved, I never had a heart for the poor. It's all about money for myself. And I always felt like if you couldn't do it by yourself, then it was something wrong with you. And I can just remember Him working on my heart. I really feel like God, He was teaching to really show me the societal issues that He hates, that he can't stand, that causes his heart to mourn, that our children not learning how to read, the poverty and people just not being able to eat or get places they need to go, or just really suffering in a society with so many resources. It's just people just don't have access to it. And it's not because they don't care or because they're lazy. It's because they just literally do not have access for it. And that grieves my Father, so therefore it grieves me. And so anything I do for them, I know I do for him, because that's what he's called me to do.
Outstanding. With that said, so as I love that your conversion, your testimony and your conversion and your transparency unapologetically with that. Many folks kind of want to keep that part of them, as it may not be politically expedient, and it may, what I'm saying. So I as a believer and as a brother in Christ, one, applaud and appreciate your acknowledging the value of that and how much that informs who you are and your passion for his heart, the things that grieve him. With that said, as a minister of reconciliation, because that's basically what you have articulated, where we are ministers or servants of reconciliation, that every person, every life that God has allowed to exist has purpose, right? And so we as servants or ministers of reconciliation, as the church, the true church, the called out, the ecclesia, we are called to reach the lost for Christ, to disciple them, right? And then to send them.
Right.
And so in the context of doing that, the Great Commission, and understanding that, and you talked about mass and caste, right, being one of the places that we can see that this, just the despair, right, and the trauma, and we don't really see it. Kind of is something to me is just been pushed aside, relegated to a little side street so that we don't have to necessarily see it. I see it because I go there intentionally to see it, to pray for folks, and I go to the jail as a volunteer chaplain and go back and forth, and I'm engaging and praying for and ministering and concerned for this community. So with that said, and it's not just there, because it's through pockets throughout the city of Boston. It's in Fields Corner. It just may not be as pronounced in one specific area, but I see it in pockets of our community. People who are homeless, dealing with mental illness, with trauma on top of trauma, who need help. And so I'm curious, what is some of your vision to be able to address some of those challenges that we are clearly experiencing? And we've got plenty of resources right now. We're in a really strong fiscally position as a state right now. But it's important that we use those resources efficiently. And as you said, and call upon other resources that we've not even leveraged to be able to address that situation there and throughout the city.
Two things come to mind. There's a pastor named Esau McCulley, and I saw him I saw a sermon where he did, where it was a great way he put it, where in a democracy, you're voting, the policies you advocate for reflect on your Christ-likeness. Because we live in a society where we can't influence it. As a believer, and even if you fall short or it doesn't happen, but like, are you fighting? Are you advocating? Are you pushing for a policy that makes the society more just, more equal, right? And so I see that when you ask me these questions, and then Shalom. Have you ever heard of Caleb McCoy? Local.
I have, absolutely.
Yeah. There's one of my favorite songs that he ever did. He was like, Shalom. Like, shalom is everything working exactly how God intended. Is pointing out all the evil and bleeding what's been oppressive, recovering what was lost, and then bringing it to potential. And I think that's a beautiful description of shalom. When you talk about the mass and caste, or you talk about our school systems, I go in with a fully a heart based on reconciliation, or just fully a redemptive narrative. When you go out to, I love that Lion of Judah calls it Miracle Mile. instead of mass cast, because they're praying and hoping every day for a miracle.
Amen.
And so am I. But also, while we're praying and hoping every day for a miracle, we should be putting in the resources and sending the social workers in to get them off of there so they have a path to redemption. Our God gives us a path to redemption. If you want to get spiritual about it, that day when David Montague said, gave me that very direct gospel message, that God opened my heart to a path of redemption, right? A path back to a relationship with him. And so we need to have the same thing in our society. Even as you mentioned, returning citizens, right? If they come out of society, back out of jail, we need to give them a full path of redemption. There should be social workers assigned to them, not just parole officers. That's, once again, that is the metal detectors in a school without the proper mental resources to make it not necessary. Your whole goal should be where this person doesn't need a parole officer anymore. So if you're not offering them the mental health services and the social services to get them connected with the right resources, then you're only asking them to fail, all right? Or you're asking them to be beyond exceptional. And so, people say I push social workers a lot, but I don't know of another way in it's until someone else shows me there's not another way in our society. They're literally geared to bring shalom. They're literally geared to see someone lost, broken, bleeding, and be like, oh no, you need to go here, you need to do this person will help you do this person will help you do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this till you can be a whole person again. And so that's, I don't know, if you ask me about any situation, that's my goal when I see a situation. What's the outcome?
So in that same vein, in terms of outcome and in terms of, you mentioned returning citizens, what is your vision for prison reform? And while you answer that question, I'm also going to ask another one. Are you in support of felony reenfranchisement? Here in the state of Massachusetts, felons could vote up until 2000, and that was taken from them as a result of advocacy and impact and effectiveness of the African American Coalition Committee, the brothers behind the walls at MCI Norfolk. They were having such impact and influence on people that literally that right was taken to dilute the impact of people who were organizing from behind the wall. Now that same entity wrote the legislation in concert with State Representative Russell Holmes that it now takes a constitutional amendment here in the state of Massachusetts for that to be restored, which fortunately with that legislation that they drafted has passed the House and the Senate, is now resting in the Constitutional Convention or calendar, if you will, to be now called upon and ultimately passed. We're the third state in the country that has moved this piece of legislation, felony reenfranchisement, right, for the most fundamental right to be able to vote. Right. So we're trying to restore that here in the state of Massachusetts, and wondering what is your position with regard to felony reenfranchisement or even universal suffrage, that everybody should have that right to be able to vote.
I mean, I think everyone should have the right to vote. I also do believe in the 16-year-olds voting in municipal elections. They go to high school. They have a very vested interest in where the funding and their leaders do for them educationally when they want to go to the next stage of life. So I think they have a vested interest in voting. I mean, I think it goes back to everything I just said about shalom. They need to be a full part of the society if they're ever going to fully recover. And taking away their right to choose who their leadership is, or who, even want to have an elected school board, who is in charge of their children's school. If we want them to be full humans and citizens, we have to give them all rights back. I don't feel like it should be a slow process or even earned. I feel like if they did their time, they come out and they just
well understand. So
register to vote, and then you move on from there. But yeah,
but understand, right? So if you are presently in Massachusetts, if you served your time, you can vote already, right? If you served your time in Massachusetts and you come out and you're on parole or you're on probation, even though you've served a felony conviction, you can vote in the state of Massachusetts. What I'm stating is, if you are presently incarcerated, serving a felony conviction, you've been stripped of your right to be able to vote here in the state of Massachusetts. And this now piece of legislation that is resting to ultimately be restored, that people who are presently serving time for a felony conviction, those are the only ones who are not allowed to vote in the state of Massachusetts presently.
Once again, everyone should be able to vote. That's my stance, 100%. Okay. Yeah.
All right. All right. Just so we're clear in terms of what it is, so people understand who are on the air that presently, if you've been convicted of a felony and you are on probation or parole, you can vote, and that already is in place. What we're hopeful to be able to do is to have everybody to support us in pushing this legislation that everyone here in the state of Massachusetts can vote, even if they're presently serving time for a felony conviction. So thank you that you have made it clear that you do support that. We got literally about 4 minutes left, and I'm gonna give those 4 minutes to you to be able just to speak to our listening and our viewing audience and tell them whatever it is that you want as to why one should be able to cast their vote for District 3 for you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here on the program. And like I said before, man, there are a lot of things. There's a lot of political things, and you'll hear a lot of issues from a lot of people. They'll talk about the schools, they'll talk about traffic, and they will talk about housing. But once again, I want to say these are personal issues for me, not political. I'm blessed to live in Boston and in Dorchester. I remember my wife and I really just feeling in despair that it might never happen when we got approved through NACA, and we were getting outbid, and people were rejecting us because we wanted inspections, and just like thinking like, okay, maybe we have to leave Dorchester and going to East Boston and going to Quincy and then getting rejected there, and just really, hoping and praying that we could stay here in Dorchester, in Boston, and then God just opening the door for us to get the place that we got. And for us to just been through a whole process of him being faithful and intentional about carrying us through, and people helping us and being able to pay our mortgage and finding good tenants, which is hard, and learning how to be a landlord and surviving pipe burst and heaters going out. We finally got 3 new heaters, so 20% of my prayer life is back. I can pray for other things other than the heaters to survive in the winter, and so my feelings for this neighborhood, the love that I've incurred for Boston, or that has been developed for Boston, is through the fact that I just feel blessed to be here. And I want us to have a new school on this side of town, not just for my kids, but for all of our kids, so that we can have the best education possible, so that we can have access to all the physical activities and science and astronomy and everything that the world has for them. I would even love for us to have language schools in high school, middle school and high school, where kids are becoming proficient in learning Arabic and learning Chinese and able to even learn their home language, to be literate in Spanish or in French. And so these are the kind of visions and things that are in my heart for Boston. I mean, everyone will say the same thing, but if you got to vote for me, I want you to vote for me because my heart is set on redemption, love, and bringing shalom to this school, and not to over spiritualize it. I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna stay up the late nights. I'm gonna have the policy people in there. I'm gonna do the political game and get other counselors to vote with me, and to get other organizations to behind my vision. I'm gonna do all that, but my heart is not set on anything political other than making this the best city for everyone. Right? There's a lot going on that isn't right, and that needs to change. And that's why I want you to vote for me. So I need you to do 3 things. I need you to pray for me. I need you to tell your friends about me. But most importantly, I need you to vote for me. So please go to joelrichards.org. Please follow up, join my mailing list, email me if you have questions. If you want to come out with me while I'm in the community, like brother said, you've seen me out there. I'm always out there. Please, come out. We would love it. See if I'm really who I say I am, right? That's the easiest way. See how I interact with people, see how I am with my kids. I don't mind that at all. I think this is a very important election right here, and I'm willing to do the work for it. So thank you. One
last question I asked you. One, thank you for being with us. And will you be accessible, even post being in office. Well, I'm going to have you come back. This is only your first time here.
Prophetic. You're prophetic now.
All right.
You being prophetic? I'm going to be in there.
Listen. What I'm saying is, yes, if God should afford you that, right? Will you continue to come back? Because that's oftentimes people come through when they're campaigning.
Right.
And then once they get in office, it's very challenging or impossible to continue to have that relationship and access that we want to build here at Boston Praise Radio and TV Network, that candidates come on and that we continue to maintain that relationship with the community, and access to our elected officials that we have during election post them actually being in office.
Right. 100%. Like, I want to still be able to bring the message, what I'm doing. I want to come and update you. Come and tell you what I'm doing. Come and tell everyone the things that I'm feeling in my heart and the things that I'm focusing on and the policies that I'm trying to pass. So the only way to get that message out is to use vehicles like this. So I want, like you said, I want to do that. I have to do the politics part, right? I got to get like, hey guys, we're trying to get this policy passed. Mm-hmm. I need you to call this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be that person doing that. And the vehicle is using people like you to do that, So yeah.
Outstanding. Well, thank you again for being with us, Joel Richards. Thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for being with us as always. And if God should tarry, we will see you back on Tuesday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., as well as Sunday evening, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. God bless you and good night.
Thank you.